Now, the Duval Rundown, driven by Jacksonville Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Westside, home of the lifetime warranty.
Good morning. Welcome to a special Thursday edition of Duval Rundown. I'm Hayes Carline, pleased to be joined with Ryan O'Halloran, columnist of the Florida Times-Union. Ryan, good morning.
Hayes, good morning. Hope we kind of thought we'd be talking about another game, but we can recap things. And I'm glad. Can we announce we're going to keep on doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. This is we're not taking a break. This team just won 13 games, and it's going to be a interesting offseason to see how it continues. So yes, we are keeping Duval Rundown going. Normally, we'll keep the same schedule: Monday with Frank Frangie, Wednesday with Ryan, and Friday with Rick Ballou. Today, we just figured we'd go on Thursday since Liam Coen and James Gladstone were doing their season-ending wrap-up yesterday. So we figured, well, might as well push it to Thursday. So we may be a little flexible with the days depending on what's going on, free agency, draft, that kind of thing. But for the most part, we'll still be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9:04 a.m. And we certainly appreciate Jacob Simons as well, making it all happen for us. So, yeah, lots to get into. I guess we'll talk about the game initially, but I do want to get to Ryan wrote a great column about the Jaguars' potential pursuit of Max Crosby. Obviously, we do have the presser from yesterday, so lots to get to in the next 20 minutes. Ryan, just give your overall thoughts about the loss to Buffalo and what you thought it said about the Jaguars.
Yeah, I still can't believe they lost that game. My buddy Nick Kosmatter covers the Broncos for The Athletic. You had him on the pregame show a couple weeks ago. Nick watched the game on tape on Tuesday. We talked yesterday, and the first thing he says is it me or were the Jaguars just the better? And I said they were the better team who lost to the best player. And that's going to stick in the crowd, the Jaguars players, coaches, support staff for the foreseeable future, because this was a hell of an opportunity. Not to just beat the Bills, but to move on and play New England. And I would have picked them to beat the Patriots. And then you get into the AFC title game, and who knows what happens if you go to Denver. You've already won there. So just I don't want to say the moment got to the Jaguars, but they did not play their game for 60 minutes. The quarterback was average. And people are going to say, well, why are you saying that about Trevor? Well, he was. 3 touchdowns and 2 turnovers. So the defense wasn't great. There was 1 stinking sack. There was 6 stinking pressures. So a missed opportunity that should haunt them for a little while.
Yeah, and it's really bittersweet because there's a part of me where it's like, well, if Josh Allen, who obviously is, he's the reigning MVP, if he goes on to lead the Bills to the Super Bowl, then it's like, wow, the Jaguars were really that close to a world championship, which is, gives you hope, considering how did they take over a 4-win team and have that kind of season right out of the gate. Certainly gives you hope that they'll continue to do that consistently. But man, it'll sting if you see Josh Allen hoisting the Lombardi, particularly if Buffalo does it in relative style. If that ends up being the closest they're pushed, because I think they're light years better than anybody else and remaining in the AFC, simply because they have Josh Allen. Yeah. And that was the reason. He came in with the foot injury. He has Hines Allen land on his head early in the game, goes in the medical tent, gets checked out for that, comes back out, hits his hand on a teammate's helmet. Now he's got a finger issue, gets that checked out. Fine. Okay. He continues. Then he scores a touchdown, and Hines Allen on a legal tackle. There's a twist motion there, and it looked like Josh Allen really wrenched his knee. He was in visible pain. Gets checked out, comes back. Just an incredible performance for him to be as efficient as he was. And I think as you look to the future, he's 3 years older than Trevor. You hope that Trevor Lawrence, who had a brilliant final 6 weeks of the season, winning AFC Offensive Player of the Month honors for December, January, you hope that over the next 3 years, Trevor isn't at the peak of his career yet. Josh Allen is. And, that was the difference in the game, to your point. As we start to move on and look ahead, Liam Coen, who, boy, did he look despondent yesterday. Talk about a coach that, he's haunted. It'll be interesting to see we obviously probably won't see Liam again for 6 weeks at a minimum, I would think, if they elect to do something before the scouting combine. But boy, he really looked like he was still taking the loss very hard, which I understand. I mean, they had a great year. They had a great team. They had a chance to get to the Super Bowl. James Gladstone, it was the first time we talked to him in a while. He was his normal demeanor, stoic, measured. What were some of your big takeaways from the press conference yesterday?
Yeah, I agree with that description of the two men at that podium. The GM has to be about the big picture. He was probably thinking more about 13-5 than 27-24, which is what the head football coach was probably thinking about. And one thing we've learned about Liam is he's probably thinking about every single call in that game, second guessing himself. And then also he sees both coordinators get head coaching slips. So it's like, he's got to start putting together plan Bs for that. I'd be surprised if Udinski or Campanile, as the sun has come out here in Jacksonville this morning. So those guys, so I'm sure he's contemplated, okay, if this happens, how do I, fill the staff? So a lot of things swim in. And also, somebody made a good point is Liam is used to being in charge at the podium. Well, he had company, and he knew that 90% of the questions were going to be to James Gladstone, because we hadn't heard from James since cutdown day. That's the philosophy. I disagree with it, but that's the philosophy. And so, Liam was a passenger. Liam likes being the driver. And so, but yeah, we can start diving into some of the topics. I'll throw one at you. What did you make of the Travis Hunter conversation with Coen and Gladstone?
I thought it was their first step towards realizing what they probably need to do in his second year. And again, this isn't a comment of what his Jaguars career will be, but I think for where the club is right now, utilize his versatility. You don't really need the receiver position is in a totally different place than it was a year ago. Brian Thomas Jr. had a disappointing year, but you added Jacoby Myers, who was outstanding, and Parker Washington became a big-time player. So you've got, if BTJ is your second or third option, I think he's fine in that role. I don't think he can lead the group. I think he showed that. But can he be a piece to the puzzle? Absolutely. And be a good piece. Brenton Strange came along. So I think from a receiving, element, they've, between the Myers, Washington, Strange at tight end, I think they've got some pretty good weapons. So I'd be fine with Travis Hunter getting, 6 to 10 offensive snaps a game.
That may hurt his feelings.
Yeah, just to keep that going. But he's a corner. I mean, that's what they need him to be. They need him to master the corner position in year 2, where they don't have a lot of great players at that position. And I think that's, have him master corner in year 2. And then look, if the balance tilts back more towards receiver needing help, then in years 3, 4, 5, you adjust. But I think in year 2, it's pretty clear they need him to be like a primary corner that never leaves the field. What do you think?
Yeah, we're probably in the minority on that in terms of, and we've said that, we've been adamant about that, is be good at one thing before you add stuff to his plate. I don't care what your vision was when you draft him. Now you add the PCL recovery to it. We may not see him in a football helmet till training camp. And Gladstone wasted no time declaring him a two-way player. Well, that could carry a lot of definitions, because what I like what James said after that is his usage will also be based on need. The wide receiver room is far different now than it was in week 7 when Hunter got hurt in practice. Myers was added. Parker Washington emerged. I think Brenton Strange will be their number 3 pass catcher next year. Then you get Thomas. Okay, corner, Buster Brown, free agent. Greg Newsome, free agent. Jordan Lewis coming off a foot injury. The cornerback is a premium position. You find them in the draft. I would tell Travis Hunter, you are going to be our number 1 corner. And then as you come along with that, maybe you get some red zone stuff. But you have to make sure he's healthy. You have to make sure he is excelling at corner. Then you can add stuff to play. One of my only criticism of this organization this year is how they tiptoed around everything about this player. Can't talk to the media. He's a two-way player. He has his own day, that kind of thing in the locker room. So they're treating him like a quarterback. I want to see him play corner because I think he can be a very good player at that position, and then you can add stuff to his plate.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Jacob Simons, like we said, helping us out on Duval Rundown. We certainly appreciate Jacob's efforts. Jacob, let's say hello to our sponsor, please.
Falou for Jacksonville Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Westside, your locally owned commercial truck headquarters and proud partner of the Jaguars. For hard-to-find ProMaster vans or commercial trucks for your fleet, visit jaxwest.com today.
So as we look ahead to some other things, contract situations, Devin Lloyd, ETN, and then in a positive, those are obviously expiring contracts. But then in a positive, proactive standpoint, Brenton Strange, Parker Washington will be eligible for deals once we get into the new league year in mid-March. Where do you stand on those four players in terms of how aggressively James Gladstone and company should go about re-signing them?
Yeah, I would not be aggressive on either four cases right now. And I'll get real quickly on this. Travis Etienne was talking in the past tense on Monday at his locker. He knows running backs are just disposable labor. He'll get paid somewhere. It just won't be here. Devin Lloyd, you kind of got the vibe he knew the end was coming. If he's projected at $15-16 million a year, the Jaguars probably don't prioritize that position at that price and couldn't afford it anyways. Washington and Strange, they are in their future plans, but you don't see a lot of players entering after 3 years sign an extension like that. I think there'll be conversations maybe around Labor Day, end of training camp. They got that window there. They sort of know what their cap situation is for the rest of the year and can put some of that money immediately onto the cap. So if I'm a Parker Washington or Brenton Strange fan with the Jaguars, those players are not going anywhere, but they may not get that extension right away.
Yeah, all good thoughts there. I would agree on all four accounts.
How about Crosby?
What's that?
How about Crosby?
And that's the thing. I mean, you wrote this great column yesterday. Check it out on jacksonville.com. It's exactly the kind of thing that I think fans crave these days. It's projecting what the organization should do, or at least try to do, because this is obviously a very big ask. But you wrote a great column about a suggestion that the Jaguars could make a trade offer for Las Vegas defensive end Max Crosby, an elite edge rusher. Take us through that, the mechanics of what you would offer and how receptive you think the Raiders might be to it.
Yeah, the baseline is the Micah Parsons trade, which was 2 firsts and Kenny Clark. I would, the Raiders going to want more than that. So I got 2 firsts, which would be 27, 28. And Trayvon Walker, who'd be in his 5th year, so expiring contract. Then you sort of talked me into a third round pick this year, because the Raiders are probably going to want to tell their fan base, hey, we got something at least for right now.
Yeah,
we don't have to look too far ahead. Is that too much? Is Max Crosby a better player than Micah Parsons? Probably not, but they have the same kind of impact. And one thing you said yesterday at the press conference that when we were talking about this is these windows are very finite. You have to go for the Lombardi. This team is in position to do that. So take a big swing. If you have confidence in the way you can draft and develop, you can live with first round picks. I think it should be explored. I think the Raiders would be receptive to it. And if I'm Max Crosby, I would be really receptive to it because the Raiders aren't going anywhere.
What I like about your suggestion is a lot of times when people do this, they really undersell what the Jaguars would have to give away. You'll see like, hey, they should trade for this superstar and give up a first-round pick. Yeah. Well, that's not going to be enough for Max Crosby. Now, in this instance, with what you suggested, which is a third this year and then two future ones in 27 and 28 and Trayvon Walker, I don't think there's any doubt Las Vegas would take that. I mean, because I do think there's a hint of desperation for the Raiders here because their relationship with the player is obviously damaged from how they handled the end of the year. He is getting, closer to the end. He's in the prime, but he's probably only got another year or two of that left. and they've been a disgrace. I mean, they haven't been competitive the entire time he's been there, basically. So I think the Raiders could be motivated to trade him. So I almost wonder, let me ask you this. If the Raiders would take the third, a 1, let's say it's a 3, a 1, and a 1, would you have an interest in keeping Trayvon Walker? And then your starters are Crosby, Hines Allen, and then Trayvon is sort of a third edge, but also helping at defensive tackle on obvious pass situations?
Yeah, I saw some of those suggestions on that. The reason I included Walker was just a cap mechanics thing to get his money off the books. But let's say you could make that work. It felt like Trayvon Walker had a bigger impact when he was rushing from inside, and they got very little interior pass rush. And Armstead had 5.5 sacks. I will give him that. That's a good number for a defensive tackle, but I think they need a little more oomph there on third down. If you're the Raiders and you are in a total rebuild, you don't want to take on any money.
Right.
You just want picks.
And they may not like Trayvon Walker.
Yeah, and so that's also the case. So it would require some mechanics because the Jaguars are not flush with cap space, even if it's over $300 million this year. So and basically the message to Trayvon Walker would be is you are going to play your 5th-year option and then you will be free to go. And right. I think that's going to happen either way. Yeah. But they need some more pass rush. They had 32 sacks in the regular season, which was 27th. They had 1 sack and 6 total pressures against the Bills. Not good enough. Campanile often had to blitz to create pressure. Can't live with that. You live and die, most likely die with that. So be it Crosby, be it a high draft pick, be it another trade, be it a free agent like Trey Hendrickson.
Could it be, or could you throw Brian Thomas Jr. in that trade? It doesn't help you in terms of shedding much salary, but he's a young player, and Las Vegas may look at him as somebody they've always been obsessed with speed. The Davis family, maybe that's a player that they might have an interest in. That if I was James Gladstone, Liam Coen, and Tony Baselli, if the Raiders viewed him as a critical piece to that trade, I mean, I'd have absolutely no problem shipping Brian Thomas Jr. to Vegas if it helped me get Max Crosby. Because I like the idea. I do like the idea of keeping Walker so that I would be able to line up in packages with Hines Allen, Crosby, and Trayvon Walker. I think that would almost be unblockable.
Yeah, and the point, and also on Brian Thomas, if he's a fourth guy here who runs go routes, you can just draft one of those guys.
Right.
So that makes him expendable. And just because you inherited a player, you still feel like you have to make it work because he was a first-round pick. But if you feel there's no recourse, even if you take a late day 2 or early day 3, to me, I don't care about the optics. You have to do what's best for your team right now.
Yeah, without a doubt. As we wrap up here, Ryan, great stuff. Obviously, read Ryan's Max Crosby column. He's tweeted it out. You can see it on Jacksonville.com. Obviously, I know you used to get asked this question 3 days after the season would end. Hey, what do we have coming? But what is coming up on Jacksonville.com, whether it's Jaguars.
Little light today.
Kind of light.
Oh, man. And hey, we delivered. Well, I talked to Mason Smith on Monday, and people would say, why? Well, he was a second-round pick 2 years ago, and he was a healthy scratch for most of the season. And I talked to Mason, and it's like, hey, what's your future? And he says, I don't really know. And I said, how'd you get through this? He goes, I just committed to my work. And one of the things that I'm going to write about is one thing we've heard about Mason Smith over the last half of the season. It was not an attitude issue. He practiced hard. He was a good teammate. And one thing he said about that was, you don't want to get that stigma that you're sulky, because then you may not get an opportunity. But I wouldn't close the door on Mason Smith because they got free agents on the interior line, and maybe maybe they give it another shot with him. So I talked to him a little bit, and then we'll get into some other stuff. And I mean, nearly 40 players came through the locker room on Monday. So we were stacking up stuff. So we're going to have full coverage sprinkled out the next month. And before you know it, we'll be talking about the combine.
Yeah. And the Jaguars have 11 picks. So it's not like this is going to be a ho-hum draft because they don't have a first rounder. First off, congratulations to the Jaguars. They're sending Cleveland, I think, the 24th or 25th pick. So, I think when the night that Travis Hunter deal was made, I think the Cleveland front office was thinking, hey, we may have just secured a top 7 pick in next year's draft. Well, it ended up backfiring. It's a late first rounder, which means it has probably about a 25% probability of being a player that can walk and chew gum in the NFL. So, I commend the Jaguars for just another, element to having a really strong season is obviously that pick isn't near as valuable as the Browns probably imagined it would be. So as you look at it, they don't have a first round pick, but I can't wait to see what they do with 11 picks because they're going to maneuver all around. And obviously we'll talk about that in future weeks, but it's got me excited. I think it's going to be a fun offseason.
I think so too. We're going to have stuff to talk about every Wednesday, that's for sure. And also on your show. So it's going to be a slow first night of the draft, but then after that, I think it's going to be the wild, wild west because James Gladstone knows he doesn't have room on his roster for 11 picks. So, does he prioritize a guy in the second round or fourth round? Does he move up and say, so. Yeah,
they have 3/3.
3/3. So, and also that gives him the option if he wants to trade for a veteran. He has a lot of I'm interested to see because really, and James made a good point just real quickly. James made a good point yesterday is that this time last year, they hadn't even hired yet. They did opening press conference in February straight to Indianapolis.
Right.
Now they can really put their imprint on this organization by, prioritizing things. They're not just having to build a team just to get to the season. So I think you're going to see the stamp really crystallize for this administration.
I think that's very well said. This is going to be a hard 53 to make. Obviously, we're 6 months away from that starting, but really it's going to be a lot of fun seeing what now comes now that they have built such a solid foundation with an outstanding season. Again, I know people are bummed, but your club won 13 games. So there's a lot of teams that would love to trade places with you, particularly with all the young talent that this roster has and the harmony that the leadership has right now, which has just been outstanding and a breath of fresh air, considering the toxicity that we've had in this organization for far too long. So it's credit to Shad Khan, credit to Tony Baselli, and certainly Liam Coen and James Gladstone, unbelievable years. So that's going to do it for us, Ryan, man. Really appreciate it. Look forward to talking with you on Wednesday. Again, read Ryan's stuff at Ryan O'Halloran, Jacksonville.com. That's going to do it for us. We'll be back tomorrow for our normal Friday with Rick Ballou. Until then, go Jaguars. Thanks for watching Duval Rundown.